Okay, now we're going to start looking at how matter cycles in ecosystems. So we've already looked at the energy flowing through it, and now we're going to look at how does matter actually move within an ecosystem? What are the flows of matter? In this screencast, we're going to just be doing a general introduction to nutrient flows within ecosystems, but you will need to know the carbon cycle in detail, the nitrogen cycle in detail, and you need to be able to discuss how humans can impact both of those cycles. All right, but for now, let's just look at in general what's going on in ecosystems. So the red represents energy in this screencast. So you can see red flowing through in this diagram. We lose it as heat because of cell respiration, right? But chemical cycling, the nutrients and the matter, it actually cycles around. It doesn't get lost to the environment unless maybe it gets transferred by wind or water to another ecosystem. But in general, it tends to stay. Because if you think about, here's the plants, right? They'll get eaten by the consumers, and all of the matter gets eventually turned into detritus, which then that will be broken down through decomposition back into inorganic nutrients that then the producers will suck up through their roots again. And we're going to be learning about some of these cycles in a lot of detail, like how does it move, how do these nutrients move from either the atmosphere to the organisms, to the soil, and different routes around it. But for now, I'm just going to talk about nutrients in general. These diagrams that I have in front of you here are called Gershmel diagrams. And they show the flow of nutrients within an ecosystem. So just general nutrients. We're not going to focus on any one in particular. And you can see that there's 3 storages in each of these. The biomass, that's all the living organisms, the plants, the animals. The litter, that's basically the detritus, like all of the fallen leaves and dead animals and things like that. And then the S is the soil. So it's generally, more an inorganic type form. Now, if we were following the nutrients in an ecosystem, so if we were looking at the tropical rainforest, you can see most of the nutrients in a tropical rainforest are actually within the organisms, the biomass themselves. There's not a lot of nutrients of litter on the floor. And there's not actually that many nutrients in the soil. Here's why. There's not a lot of litter on the floor, even though there's a whole lot of plants, but because it's such a productive system, anytime a leaf or falls to the ground or an organism dies, there are lots of decomposers that will just break that down super quick. It's really warm. And so everything gets broken down really quickly. So whenever a leaf or anything comes down and falls to the ground, that gets decomposed, that's what this arrow is, really quickly into the inorganic nutrients that are then stored in the soil. And once those nutrients are in the soil, there's so many plants, it just sucks up those nutrients really quickly and houses them within the biomass of the organisms. So when we look at nutrients within a tropical rainforest, because it's got plenty of sunlight, plenty of warmth, plenty of water, they tend to hold most of their nutrients within the biomass. That's different than, say, the desert, right? There's not a lot of biomass in the desert because it's not as productive. You can't have as many plants there. So yeah, there's going to be plenty of things that dying and leaves falling and some leaf litter, but most of the nutrients end up getting stored in the soil. The taiga, on the other hand, now that's the coniferous forest in the very north. Like, think of northern Russia, northern Canada, northern if you go around Eurasia and North America, that very ring of these coniferous forests where you think about lynx and wolves and bears, and Christmas tree type trees. Well, there, most of the nutrients is actually stored in the leaf litter. It's because it's pretty cold. So there's not a lot of decomposition, doesn't happen very quickly. So things die and they kind of stay frozen. They don't decompose super quickly. When you get the leaves falling to the ground, you get this permafrost layer. And so most of the biomass is going to be contained within the leaf litter here. And it doesn't break down very quickly. So you can see different ecosystems will have different places where they tend to store these nutrients in larger amounts. Now, in the rest of this unit, when we were looking at the movement of matter, we're going to actually be focusing on carbon and on nitrogen. And we can, kind of go back and look at how it happens in different ecosystems more or less quickly in different storages. But we're going to be really taking you through these cycles. You need to be able to draw them, and you need to be able to label them, and you need to be able to determine the, transfers and transformations and how things are moving within within an ecosystem. Okay, so I think next we're going to hit up the carbon cycle.